The Cation invasion caught Earth with its defenses down. In a matter of days, humanity's outer colonies fell to the alien onslaught, their superior technology overwhelming human forces. As the Cation fleet pushed relentlessly towards the inner solar system, Earth's military suffered crushing defeats. Panic spread across the planet like wildfire. In a secure underground bunker, the United Earth government convened an emergency session. The mood was grim as reports of casualties and territorial losses poured in. Admiral Sarah Chen, her uniform crisp despite the chaos, strode to the podium. Her face betrayed no emotion as she activated a holographic display. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began, her voice steady, "I present to you our last hope, Project Titan." On Mars, Staff Sergeant Kevin Morris stood in a sterile white room, his muscular frame a testament to years of military service and months of genetic enhancement. He listened intently as his mission was outlined. The Titans would infiltrate Cation command ships, gathering vital intelligence and sabotaging key systems. "Projected survival rate?" Kevin asked, his voice low and steady. Kevin nodded, his jaw set. Without hesitation, he volunteered for the most dangerous assignment, infiltrating the Cation fleet commander's flagship. As he donned his advanced stealth suit, designed to mask his presence from alien sensors, Kevin overheard a conversation that chilled him to the core. "The Cations believe they've already won," one technician whispered to another. "They're preparing for full-scale colonization of Earth." The weight of this information settled on Kevin's shoulders. As he boarded the sleek stealth insertion craft, he realized the magnitude of his mission. It wasn't just about gathering intelligence or sabotage anymore. The fate of humanity itself rested on the success of the Titans. As the insertion craft's engines hummed to life, Kevin thought of the billions of humans counting on him, unaware of his existence or the desperate gamble Earth's leaders were taking. He clenched his fists, feeling the power coursing through his enhanced body. The Cations thought they had won, but they hadn't faced the full might of humanity yet. They hadn't met the Titans. With a silent prayer, Kevin prepared himself for the battle ahead. The Cations may have had the advantage of surprise and superior technology, but they were about to learn a harsh lesson. Human soldiers, especially those pushed to the limits of their potential, were a force unlike any the galaxy had ever seen. As the craft accelerated towards the Cation fleet, Kevin allowed himself a grim smile. The real war was just beginning. The stealth insertion craft glided silently through the vast emptiness of space, its sleek form barely visible against the backdrop of stars. Inside, Kevin felt his heart rate accelerate as the massive Cation flagship loomed before him. The alien vessel's feline-inspired architecture was both beautiful and terrifying, its smooth lines belying the destructive power contained within. As the insertion craft maneuvered towards a maintenance hatch, Kevin's mind raced, processing tactical information at an unprecedented speed. He analyzed approach vectors, calculated optimal entry points, and formulated contingency plans, all in the span of seconds. The craft docked with a soft thud. Kevin moved swiftly, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to slip through the hatch and into the Cation ship with fluid grace. He held his breath as the ship's security systems swept the area, their sensors passing mere centimeters from his position. Thanks to his advanced stealth suit and Titan abilities, he remained undetected. Once inside, Kevin found himself in a labyrinth of alien corridors. The walls pulsed with a soft, bioluminescent glow, casting eerie shadows that danced and shifted. He moved silently, his footsteps making no sound on the smooth floor. Every few meters, he paused, listening intently to the ship around him. Fragments of conversation reached his enhanced hearing. Two Cation crew members passed nearby, their feline features animated as they spoke in their native tongue. Kevin's implanted translator struggled to keep up with their rapid speech, but he caught enough to chill his blood. "The final assault on Earth's defenses is scheduled for tomorrow," one Cation said, excitement evident in his voice. "About time," the other replied. "I'm tired of this prolonged conquest. Let's finish these humans and move on to more challenging prey." Kevin's expression resolute, but he remained motionless until the Cations passed. The weight of his mission pressed down on him, spurring him deeper into the heart of the enemy ship. As he navigated the twisting corridors, Kevin's enhanced senses picked up on a concentration of activity ahead. He slowed his approach, hugging the shadows as he neared a heavily guarded command center. Inside, he could see holographic displays flickering with data, critical intelligence on the Cation invasion plans. 4 guards stood at attention outside the command center, their ears twitching at the slightest sound. Kevin took a deep breath, channeling the power of his Titan enhancements. In a blur of motion, he struck. The first guard went down before he could even register Kevin's presence. A precise blow to the back of the neck, rendering him unconscious. The second guard managed to turn, eyes widening in shock, before Kevin's elbow connected with his solar plexus, driving the air from his lungs. The third and fourth guards reached for their weapons, but Kevin was faster. A sweeping leg took out the third guard's knees, while a palm strike to the chin dropped the fourth. In less than 5 seconds, all 4 guards lay unconscious at Kevin's feet. He dragged them into a nearby storage closet, ensuring they wouldn't be discovered immediately. Inside the command center, Kevin's fingers flew over the alien computer interface. His enhanced mind processed the unfamiliar symbols at lightning speed, allowing him to navigate the system with surprising ease. He inserted a data crystal, downloading terabytes of information on Cation fleet movements, weapon capabilities, and invasion strategies. As the download neared completion, a flashing alert caught Kevin's eye. He tapped the icon, revealing a prisoner manifest. His eyes widened as he read the name. Dr. Elena Reeves, human female scientist, held in detention block C7. Kevin hesitated, his mission objectives warring with his instinct to rescue a fellow human. The data crystal beeped, signaling the completed download. Decision time. With a silent apology to his commanders, Kevin ejected the crystal and set off towards the detention block. His enhanced abilities allowed him to move swiftly and silently through the ship, avoiding patrols and disabling security measures with ease. Upon reaching Dr. Reeves's cell, Kevin prepared himself for the worst. But as the door slid open, he was met with an unexpected sight. Dr. Reeves, a petite woman with fierce intelligence burning in her eyes, stood over a dismantled piece of Cation technology. She looked up, startled by Kevin's appearance. "Staff Sergeant Kevin Morris, United Earth Forces," he replied, scanning the corridor for any signs of approaching guards. "I'm here to get you out, Dr. Reeves." Elena's eyes narrowed. "Not yet," she said, turning back to her work. "I'm close to a breakthrough. This Cation weapon system, I've been reverse engineering it. If I can just figure out the last piece." Kevin blinked, taken aback by her calm demeanor and single-minded focus. "Dr. Reeves, we don't have time. We need to leave now." "You don't understand," Elena insisted, her hands never stopping their work. "This could be the key to turning the tide of the war. I just need a little more time." Before Kevin could argue further, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. A voice, cold and commanding, echoed through the corridors. "Attention all personnel. Human intruder detected. Prisoner escape in progress. Initiate ship-wide lockdown. This is Commander Merzum. I want them found and captured immediately." Kevin cursed under his breath. "We're out of time, Dr. Reeves. We have to go. Now." Elena nodded reluctantly, gathering what she could of her work. As they stepped into the corridor, the sound of approaching footsteps reached Kevin's enhanced hearing. They moved swiftly through the ship, Kevin's Titan abilities allowing him to anticipate and avoid Cation search parties. But with each passing minute, their options dwindled. Security doors slammed shut around them, cutting off escape routes and herding them into an increasingly small area of the ship. Finally, they found themselves trapped in a sealed section of the vessel, Cation forces closing in from all sides. Kevin's mind raced, searching for a way out. Beside him, Elena worked furiously on a datapad she had managed to grab during their escape. "If I can just interface with the ship's systems," she muttered, her fingers flying over the alien device. "Maybe I can—" A loud bang echoed through the corridor as Cation soldiers began attempting to breach the sealed doors. Kevin positioned himself protectively in front of Elena, his enhanced muscles tensed for battle. As the Cation forces drew nearer, Kevin and Elena prepared for their last stand. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, resting on the shoulders of a genetically enhanced super soldier and a brilliant scientist. As the first door began to give way, they exchanged a look of iron will. Whatever came next, they would face it together. Suddenly, an idea struck him. His eyes darted to the maintenance hatch on the far wall. Without hesitation, he lunged forward, his Titan-enhanced strength allowing him to pry open the sealed panel with a screech of protesting metal. "Dr. Reeves, this way," he called, gesturing to the narrow opening. Elena's eyes widened as she took in the cramped service tunnel beyond. "Are you sure about this?" Kevin nodded grimly. "It's our only chance. Move!" As the first Cation soldiers breached the outer door, Kevin and Elena scrambled into the claustrophobic passage. The tunnel was barely wide enough for Kevin's broad shoulders, forcing him to crawl on his stomach. The acrid smell of lubricants and ozone filled his nostrils as they inched forward, the sound of pursuing Cations echoing behind them. As they moved, Elena's voice broke the tense silence. "Sergeant, while I was working on their technology, I discovered something crucial." Kevin glanced back at her, his interest piqued. "What is it?" "The Cation ships," Elena explained, her voice barely above a whisper. "They use a unique crystalline power source. It's incredibly efficient, but it has a weakness. It's vulnerable to specific electromagnetic frequencies." As they emerged into a slightly wider section of the tunnel network, Kevin's enhanced hearing picked up the faint hum of machinery. He held up a hand, signaling Elena to stop. "I think we're near an auxiliary control room," he whispered. Carefully, they approached a ventilation grate. Through the slats, Kevin could see two Cation technicians working at a bank of consoles. He turned to Elena, a plan forming in his mind. "Dr. Reeves, if I can get you access to those systems, do you think you could transmit your findings to Earth?" Elena nodded, her eyes gleaming with purpose. "Give me 5 minutes." With a swift, powerful kick, Kevin knocked the grate free. Before the startled Cations could react, he was upon them. His enhanced speed and strength made short work of the technicians, leaving them unconscious on the floor. Elena rushed to the consoles, her fingers flying over the alien interface. "I'm in," she announced. "Beginning data transfer now." As Elena worked, Kevin stood guard, his senses on high alert. The ship-wide alarms continued to blare, and he could hear the distant sounds of search parties growing closer. "Dr. Reeves, we need to move," Kevin urged as the minutes ticked by. "Just a moment more," Elena insisted, her eyes never leaving the screen. "The transfer is at 85%, 90%. Reluctantly, Elena disengaged from the console. "I hope it was enough," she murmured as they slipped back into the service tunnels. They navigated through the ship's innards, Kevin's enhanced senses allowing them to avoid the searching Cation patrols. As they moved, he formulated a plan. "We need to get off this ship," Kevin said. "The hangar bay is our best bet." Elena nodded in agreement, her face set with grit. As they neared the hangar, the sound of approaching Cation soldiers grew louder. Kevin knew they couldn't avoid confrontation any longer. He turned to Elena, his expression grave. "Stay behind me," he instructed. "When I engage them, make a run for the nearest shuttle." Before Elena could protest, Kevin burst from their hiding spot. He moved like a blur, his Titan-enhanced body allowing him to close the distance to the first Cation soldier in the blink of an eye. His fist connected with the alien's jaw, sending it crumpling to the ground. The other Cations reacted quickly, their feline reflexes impressive but no match for Kevin's augmented abilities. He ducked and weaved through their attacks, his movements a perfect blend of power and precision. One by one, the Cation soldiers fell before him. But for every opponent he felled, 2 more seemed to take their place. Kevin found himself surrounded, the sheer number of enemies beginning to overwhelm even his enhanced capabilities. Just as the situation seemed most dire, the ship lurched violently. The lights flickered, and the Cation soldiers stumbled, momentarily disoriented. Kevin seized the opportunity, breaking through their ranks to rejoin Elena. "What's happening?" he shouted over the renewed blaring of alarms. Taking advantage of the chaos, Kevin and Elena sprinted towards the hangar bay. They encountered pockets of resistance along the way, but the confused state of the Cation crew worked to their advantage. As they entered the vast hangar, Kevin's eyes locked onto a sleek Cation shuttle. "There," he pointed. "That's our ticket out of here." They raced towards the vessel, dodging panicked Cation crew members and avoiding sparking, malfunctioning equipment. Kevin's enhanced strength allowed him to pry open the shuttle's hatch, and they clambered inside. Elena immediately set to work on the shuttle's controls, her understanding of Cation technology proving invaluable. "I think I can get this running," she said, her fingers dancing over the alien interface. As they maneuvered towards the hangar bay's force field, Kevin caught sight of a familiar figure on the deck below. Commander Mirzam, his feline features contorted with rage, was shouting orders to a squadron of fighters. "Hold on," Kevin warned as he pushed the shuttle to full speed. They burst through the force field and into open space, the vast expanse of the ongoing battle spreading out before them. Kevin's breath caught in his throat as he took in the scene. A new fleet of human ships had arrived, their weapons tearing through the Cation defenses with unprecedented effectiveness. The Cation flagship, still reeling from their internal sabotage, struggled to mount a defense. "There!" Elena pointed to a human cruiser in the distance. "Head for that ship!" As Kevin piloted the stolen shuttle towards safety, alarms blared. A quick glance at the sensor readouts confirmed his fears. "We've got company," he growled. "Cation fighters on our tail." Elena's eyes widened as she looked out the rear viewport. "It's Mirzam," she said, her voice tight. "He's leading the pursuit himself." Suddenly, a squadron of human fighters swooped in, engaging the pursuing Cations. Kevin watched in awe as the human pilots, armed with the new knowledge gleaned from Elena's research, expertly outmaneuvered their alien counterparts. With a final burst of speed, Kevin guided their shuttle into the human cruiser's hangar bay. As the stolen vessel touched down, he let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. The hangar erupted in cheers as Kevin and Elena emerged from the shuttle. A group of officers approached, their faces a mixture of relief and excitement. As they were led towards a secure briefing room, Kevin and Elena exchanged a glance. Despite the exhaustion etched on their faces, there was a spark of something more in their eyes. They had faced impossible odds together and emerged victorious. Whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them side by side. The briefing room door slid open, revealing a gathering of Earth's top military minds. At the center stood a tall, imposing figure, Captain Marcus Starin of the ENS Prometheus. His piercing stare locked onto Kevin and Elena as they entered. "Sergeant Morris, Dr. Reeves," Captain Starin began, his voice grave. "Thanks to your efforts, we now have a chance to strike at the heart of the Cation fleet. But to succeed, we'll need both of your unique skills." As the captain began to outline their daring plan, Kevin found his attention divided. Part of him was focused on the crucial information being shared, but another part couldn't help but be acutely aware of Dr. Reeves standing beside him. Her brilliance, her bravery in the face of overwhelming odds, it stirred something within him he hadn't anticipated. Elena, too, found her gaze drawn to Kevin. She saw beyond the enhanced physique, recognizing the man of remarkable courage and compassion who had risked everything to save her. As the briefing continued, the weight of their task pressed down upon them. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and success would require every ounce of their combined skills and grit. Yet amidst the tension and urgency, a connection was forming between Kevin and Elena, a bond forged in the crucible of their shared ordeal and mutual admiration. Captain Starin's voice cut through their thoughts, bringing their attention back to the matter at hand. "We move out in 6 hours," he announced. "I suggest you both get some rest. You'll need to be at your best for what's coming." As they filed out of the briefing room, Kevin and Elena shared another glance. Whatever the future held, they would face it together, their newfound connection adding a personal stake to their already monumental task. Captain Starin's voice rang out in the briefing room, silencing the murmurs of anticipation. "Intelligence has confirmed the location of the Cation Invasion Force's Central Command Hub. It's a heavily fortified space station orbiting a gas giant in the Epsilon Eridani system." A holographic display flickered to life, showing a massive ring structure suspended above swirling clouds of amber and crimson. Kevin leaned forward, studying the station's defenses with a tactical eye. "Our mission," Starin continued, is to launch a surgical strike against this command center. If successful, we'll cripple the entire Cation war effort. He turned to Kevin and Elena. Sergeant Morris, you'll lead a small team to infiltrate the station and sabotage its defenses and communications. Dr. Reeves, your expertise will be crucial. You'll remain aboard the Prometheus, providing real-time analysis and technical support. Elena nodded, her fingers already dancing across a data pad as she absorbed the schematics of the Cation station. The Prometheus will utilize stealth technology based on Dr. Reeves's research to approach undetected, Starren explained. Once in position, Morris and his team will board the station through a maintenance airlock. As the briefing concluded, Kevin felt a mix of anticipation and tension coiling in his gut. He glanced at Elena, noting the determined set of her jaw. Their eyes met briefly, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. 6 hours later, the Prometheus glided silently through the inky void of space, its hull shimmering with the distortion field that rendered it nearly invisible to Cation sensors. Kevin stood in the hangar bay, performing a final check on his team's equipment. A soft footfall behind him made him turn. Elena approached, holding a small device. "I've prepared this for you," she said, handing it to Kevin. "It should allow you to interface with Cation systems and bypass their security measures." Their fingers brushed as Kevin took the device, sending a jolt of electricity through his enhanced nerves. "Thank you, Doctor," he said softly. "Your work may well be the key to our success." Before Kevin could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. Captain Starren's voice crackled over the intercom. "Unexpected Cation patrol detected. All hands prepare for evasive maneuvers." Kevin's enhanced senses registered the subtle shift in the ship's trajectory as it veered towards the looming gas giant. Through the hangar's force field, he watched the planet's turbulent atmosphere grow larger in their view. "We're using the magnetic field to mask our approach," Elena explained, gripping a nearby console for support as the ship shuddered. The Prometheus skimmed dangerously close to the planet's roiling clouds, tendrils of charged particles licking at its hull. Kevin's team braced themselves as the ship bucked and rolled, threading a needle between detection and destruction. After several tense minutes, they emerged on the far side of the gas giant. The Cation command station loomed before them, its massive form eclipsing the distant stars. "Stealth systems holding," announced the ship's AI. "We are undetected." Captain Starren's voice came through once more. "Sergeant Morris, you have a go. Good hunting." Kevin nodded to his team, a group of 4 other enhanced soldiers, each the best in their field. They moved swiftly to their assault shuttle, a sleek craft designed for silent approach. As the shuttle detached from the Prometheus, Kevin watched the larger ship slip behind one of the gas giant's moons, hiding itself from view. His enhanced vision picked out Elena's form through one of the bridge windows. He allowed himself a moment to consider the strange twist of fate that had brought them together before focusing on the mission at hand. The assault shuttle glided silently towards the Cation station, using the sprawling structure's own bulk to avoid detection. They approached a rarely used maintenance airlock, barely large enough to admit a single person at a time. "Preparing for breach," Kevin sub-vocalized into his comm unit. He placed Elena's device against the airlock's control panel, watching as alien symbols scrolled across its screen. With a soft hiss, the outer doors slid open. One by one, Kevin's team slipped into the airlock. As the pressure equalized, Kevin felt the familiar surge of adrenaline, his enhanced body primed for action. The inner doors opened, revealing a dimly lit corridor. As they neared the central computer hub, Kevin held up a fist, signaling his team to halt. His enhanced hearing picked up the soft pad of Cation feet approaching. They pressed themselves into recesses along the corridor walls, activating their adaptive camouflage. A pair of Cation technicians walked past, engrossed in conversation. Kevin held his breath, knowing that the feline aliens' keen senses might detect them despite their precautions. But the technicians passed by without pause, their voices fading as they turned a corner. With a silent hand signal, Kevin led his team forward once more. They reached the computer hub without further incident, finding it staffed by only a skeleton crew of Cations. Kevin's enhanced speed allowed him to neutralize the aliens before they could raise an alarm. As his team secured the room, He approached the main console, Ellen's device in hand. "I'm in," he subvocalized, watching as the device interfaced with the Cation systems, beginning shutdown of station defenses and communications. He worked quickly, guided by Elena's instructions relayed through his earpiece. Progress bars filled his heads-up display as the station's systems began to fail one by one. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the station. Kevin cursed under his breath, realizing their intrusion had been detected. "Sergeant, we've got incoming," one of his team members called out. "Multiple hostiles converging on our position." Kevin's mind raced, weighing their options. "Hold them off," he ordered. "I need more time to complete the shutdown." The sounds of weapons fire filled the air as Kevin's team engaged the Cation security forces. He worked furiously at the console, acutely aware of the danger closing in around them. "Kevin," Elena's voice came through his calm, tension evident in her tone. "I've identified a weakness in the station's power grid. If you can reach the main junction in engineering, you might be able to trigger a cascading failure that will disable the entire station." "Understood," Kevin replied, abandoning the console. "Team, fall back to engineering. We're changing objectives." They fought their way through the station's corridors, Kevin's enhanced strength and speed proving invaluable in the close-quarters combat. But the Cation forces were relentless, and Kevin could see his team beginning to tire. As they neared engineering, a familiar voice echoed through the station's communication system. "This is Commander Mirzam. All forces converge on engineering. Do not let the humans reach the power systems." They burst into engineering, a vast chamber dominated by pulsing energy conduits and humming machinery. Kevin spotted the power junction Elena had described, a nexus of glowing cables and control panels. The Cation's eyes blazed with fury as she circled Kevin. "You've caused enough trouble, human," she snarled. "This ends now!" Kevin settled into a fighting stance, his enhanced muscles coiled and ready. "You're right about one thing, Commander," he replied. "This does end now." As they fought, Kevin maneuvered them closer to the power junction. He could hear Elena's voice in his ear, guiding him on how to trigger the overload. With a sudden burst of speed, Kevin feinted left, then drove right, slamming Mirzam against the junction's control panel. As the Cation commander struggled to regain her footing, Kevin's hand flew across the controls, initiating the overload sequence. Warning klaxons blared as energy began to surge through the station's systems. Kevin used Mirzam's momentary distraction to his advantage, landing a powerful blow that sent her crashing into a bank of equipment. The engineering section trembled as the overload spread, systems failing in a cascade of sparks and explosions. Kevin's team regrouped around him, having successfully held off the Cation security forces. Kevin made a split-second decision. He scooped up the unconscious form of Commander Mirzam, unwilling to leave even an enemy to die. "Fall back to the extraction point," he ordered his team. They fought their way back through the disintegrating station, dodging falling debris and sporadic weapons fire from the remaining Cation forces. As they neared their entry point, the station's artificial gravity failed. As they launched away from the dying station, Kevin saw the Prometheus emerge from its hiding place, already engaged in battle with the first wave of the Cation fleet. The human ship executed a series of daring maneuvers, creating an opening for the shuttle to dock. The Prometheus leapt away from the battle, leaving behind a scene of chaos as the destruction of the command station threw the Cation forces into disarray. In the aftermath, Kevin found himself in the ship's medical bay, wincing slightly as Elena tended to his wounds. Despite his enhanced healing, the battle had taken its toll. "You did it," Elena said softly, her eyes shining with a mix of admiration and something deeper. "You've given Earth a fighting chance." Kevin caught her hand as she finished applying a regenerative patch to his shoulder. "We did it," he corrected her. "Your research, your guidance. We couldn't have succeeded without you." Their eyes met, the intensity of their shared experiences creating a connection that went beyond words. But before either could speak, Captain Starin entered the medical bay. "Sergeant, Doctor," he said, his expression grave, "Commander Mirzam has regained consciousness. She's demanding to speak with the human who defeated her." Kevin exchanged a glance with Elena, sensing that this confrontation could be crucial to understanding their enemy and potentially shaping the course of the war. Elena nodded, her face set with perseverance. As they followed Captain Starin out of the medical bay, Kevin felt a complex mix of emotions: triumph at their recent victory, anticipation for the confrontation to come, and a growing awareness of his deepening connection with Elena. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew that together, they stood a chance of turning the tide of this interstellar conflict. The fate of Earth hung in the balance, and the next moves they made could determine the future of humanity among the stars. Kevin and Elena followed Captain Starin through the Prometheus's corridors, their footsteps echoing in the tense silence. As they approached the holding cell, Kevin felt a mix of curiosity and apprehension. What could the Cation commander possibly have to say? The cell door slid open with a soft hiss, revealing Commander Mirzum. The Cation sat on a bench, her feline features composed, but her tail twitching with agitation. Her eyes locked onto Kevin as they entered. "So," Mirzum said, her voice a low growl, "you're the one who bested me." Before Kevin could respond, Captain Starin stepped forward. "You're here to answer questions, not ask them." Mirzum's ears flattened against her head, but then she did something unexpected. She laughed, a rough, barking sound. "Oh, you humans, so quick to judge, so slow to understand." Elena leaned in, her scientific curiosity piqued. "Understand what?" Mirzum's expression sobered. "That this war isn't about conquest. It's about survival." The room fell silent as the implications of her words sank in. Kevin exchanged a glance with Elena, seeing his own confusion mirrored in her eyes. "Explain," Captain Starin demanded. Mirzum sighed, her shoulders sagging. "Our homeworld is dying. A catastrophic environmental disaster has left it barely habitable. Earth. Earth was our last hope." The revelation hit Kevin like a physical blow. He'd been fighting, killing, believing he was protecting humanity from mindless aggression. But if Mirzum was telling the truth— "You're saying you invaded Earth to save your own species?" Elena asked, her voice a mix of skepticism and fascination. Mirzum nodded. "We believed you wouldn't willingly share your resources. We saw no other choice." Kevin's mind raced, reassessing everything he thought he knew about the conflict. He looked at Elena, seeing the gears turning in her brilliant mind as well. "Captain," Elena said, "we need to verify this information. If it's true, it could change everything." Starin nodded, his expression grim. "Agreed, but for now this stays between us. We can't risk this information spreading until we know more." As they left the holding cell, Kevin felt the weight of this new knowledge pressing down on him. The black and white certainty of their mission had suddenly become shades of gray. Over the next few days, Elena threw herself into analyzing the data they'd stolen from the Cation command hub. Kevin found himself spending more time with her, ostensibly to provide security, but in reality drawn to her intensity and the way her eyes lit up when she made a breakthrough. "Kevin, look at this," Elena called out one evening, her fingers flying over a holographic display. "The Cations have incredible terraforming technology. They could potentially restore their homeworld, but—" "But what?" Kevin leaned in, inhaling the faint scent of her hair. "They're missing a crucial component, and guess where it's found?" Elena nodded, her eyes meeting his. "Exactly. That's why they came here. They need something only Earth can provide." As Elena continued her research, Kevin was tasked with extracting more information from Mirzum. Their conversations were tense at first, but as days passed, a grudging respect began to form between them. As Kevin learned more about Cation culture and motivations, he found himself questioning the simplistic view of the conflict he'd held before. Mirzum, in turn, seemed to be reassessing her own views on humans. The relative calm aboard the Prometheus was shattered when orders came through from Earth's military command. Return immediately to launch a full-scale counteroffensive against the weakened Cation fleet. In the command center, Captain Starin's face was grim as he relayed the orders. "They want to strike while the Cations are vulnerable." "But sir," Elena protested, "if what we've learned is true, this could be an opportunity for peace, not more bloodshed." Kevin nodded in agreement. We can't ignore the possibility of a diplomatic solution. Starin's expression was conflicted. I understand your concerns, but orders are orders. We're to return to Earth immediately. As they began their journey back, tension aboard the ship was palpable. Crew members who had caught wind of the conflicting viewpoints argued in hushed tones in the corridors. Their return trip took an unexpected turn when they encountered a Caitian civilian transport ship, its distress beacon blinking weakly in the void of space. Captain, the sensor officer called out, the Caitian ship's life support is failing. They have maybe an hour left. All eyes turned to Captain Starin. Their orders were clear, return to Earth without delay, but the captain's teeth clenched as he stared at the view screen. Helm, bring us alongside that ship, he ordered. Prepare for emergency evacuation procedures. The rescue operation was tense but successful. As the last of the Caitian civilians were brought aboard, Kevin caught sight of Mirzam watching from a viewport, her expression unreadable. When they finally reached Earth, Kevin and Elena found themselves facing a new battlefield, the corridors of power within the United Earth government. They presented their findings, arguing passionately for a diplomatic approach. And risk leaving ourselves vulnerable? A general scoffed. The Caitians are weak. Now is the time to strike and secure humanity's future. The debate raged on, but in the end, a compromise was reached. A small team would be sent to attempt negotiations, with Kevin selected to lead and Elena to accompany as scientific advisor. Elena, Kevin said softly, She placed a finger on his lips, her touch sending a shiver through him. I know, she whispered. But right now, we have to focus on the mission. The fate of 2 species depends on us. Kevin nodded, understanding but unable to ignore the electricity between them. They returned to their work, but something had shifted, a new undercurrent of emotion adding to the already complex situation. Days later, Kevin stood in the launch bay of their stealth ship, watching as the final preparations were made. Elena worked nearby, double-checking the terraforming technology they carried as a peace offering. Commander Mirzam, who had agreed to accompany them as a sign of good faith, approached Kevin. Are you ready for this, human? She asked, her tail swishing behind her. As the launch countdown began, Kevin took his place at the ship's controls. Elena sat beside him, her presence both comforting and exhilarating. Behind them, their small diplomatic team prepared for the journey that would take them into the heart of Caitian space. The launch bay doors opened, revealing the star-studded expanse of space. As their ship lifted off, Kevin felt the weight of their mission settle on his shoulders. They carried with them the hopes of 2 civilizations, the potential for peace, and the daunting task of bridging the gap between species that had known only war. The stealth ship slipped away from Earth, its course set for Caitian territory. As the blue marble of their homeworld faded from view, Kevin allowed himself one last glance at Elena. Whatever challenges lay ahead, he knew that with her by his side, they stood a chance of succeeding where armies had failed. The ship accelerated, carrying them towards an uncertain future and the greatest challenge of their lives. The stealth ship glided silently through the inky void of space, its sleek form cutting through the star-studded darkness. Kevin's hands danced over the controls, making minute adjustments to their course as they entered Caitian-controlled territory. Beside him, Elena's eyes were fixed on the sensor readouts, monitoring for any sign of detection. We're approaching the outer defense perimeter, Kevin announced, his voice low and tense. Cloaking systems are functioning at optimal levels. Elena nodded, her fingers flying over her console. All signatures are masked. We should be invisible to their... Her words were cut short by a sudden, blaring alarm. Red warning lights bathed the cockpit in an ominous glow. Impossible, Elena gasped, her eyes wide with disbelief. They've detected us. Kevin's muscles tensed as he scanned the rapidly changing tactical display. Multiple Caitian vessels incoming. They're moving to surround us. Within moments, the stealth ship found itself encircled by a patrol fleet of sleek, predatory-looking Caitian warships. Their weapon systems glowed with menacing energy, locked onto the suddenly vulnerable human vessel. Power down all systems, Kevin ordered, his mind racing through their limited options. We can't outrun or outfight them. As the ship's systems went dark, Kevin turned to Commander Mirzam, who had been observing silently from the rear of the cockpit. Any ideas? Kevin hesitated for a moment, then nodded. Do it. Mirzam stepped forward, activating the communications array. She spoke rapidly in the Kaitian language, her words a series of growls, purrs, and sharp consonants. Kevin watched the tension in her shoulders, the way her ears flattened against her skull, reading the gravity of the situation in her body language. After what felt like an eternity, Mirzam turned back to face them. They've agreed to escort us to a nearby space station instead of destroying us outright. It's the best I could manage. The journey to the space station was tense, their small ship dwarfed by the Kaitian escorts. As they approached, Kevin marveled at the massive structure. Unlike the utilitarian designs of human space stations, this one was a work of art, all sweeping curves and gleaming metal, resembling a giant, stylized claw reaching out into space. Upon docking, Kevin and Elena found themselves quickly separated from their team. They were led through winding corridors, the architecture a blend of advanced technology and elements that seemed almost organic. Finally, they were ushered into an enormous circular chamber. Kevin's breath caught in his throat as he took in the sight. The Kaitian High Council chamber was a marvel of engineering and aesthetics. The curved walls were lined with shimmering holographic displays, each showing a different aspect of the Kaitian homeworld. But instead of the lush, vibrant planet Kevin had imagined, the images showed a world in decay. Vast deserts where oceans should be, withered forests, and cities choked with polluted air. At the center of the chamber, arranged in a semicircle, sat the High Council, a dozen Kaitians of varying ages, their fur patterns denoting different clans and regions. Their eyes, a kaleidoscope of feline colors, fixed unwaveringly on the two humans. Kevin stepped forward, his heart pounding, but his voice steady. Honorable members of the High Council, we come before you with an offer of peace and cooperation. When Kevin finished, Elena moved to his side, activating a portable holoprojector. If I may, she said, her voice clear and confident, I'd like to demonstrate the potential of our combined efforts. The air above them shimmered as Elena's simulations came to life. The counselors leaned forward, watching in awe as barren landscapes transformed into lush, habitable environments. Desolate planets bloomed with life, showcasing the incredible possibilities that lay before them. As the last simulation faded, a low murmur of excitement filled the chamber. Kevin felt a surge of hope. They were making progress. But the moment was shattered by a thunderous voice from the chamber's entrance. This is madness! All heads turned to see a group of Kaitian military officers storming into the room, led by a large, battle-scarred male with a cybernetic eye. His fur was dark as night, broken by streaks of silver that spoke of hard-won experience. Admiral Claw, one of the counselors acknowledged, her tone wary. Claw stalked forward, his cybernetic eye glowing an angry red. You would trust these humans? The very beings who have resisted us at every turn? This is nothing but a ploy to lower our defenses. The chamber erupted into chaos, with counselors and military officers alike shouting over one another. Kevin and Elena found themselves at the center of a storm of Kaitian politics and old grudges. As the argument raged, Kevin's enhanced hearing picked up snippets of conversation. He realized that Claw's faction held significant sway, and the fragile progress they'd made was slipping away. In that moment, Kevin made a decision that would alter the course of two civilizations. He stepped forward, his voice cutting through the din. Admiral Claw, I challenge you to single combat. The chamber fell silent, all eyes turning to Kevin. Even Elena looked at him in shock, her expression a mix of disbelief and fear. Claw's organic eye narrowed as he regarded Kevin. You dare challenge me, human? A tense silence fell over the chamber as Claw considered the offer. Finally, a predatory grin spread across his face. I accept. Prepare yourself, human. You will regret this challenge. As the council adjourned to prepare for the combat trial, Elena pulled Kevin aside, her eyes wide with concern. Kevin, what are you doing? You can't risk everything on a fight. Kevin placed his hands on her shoulders, looking into her eyes. It's the only way, Elena. We have to prove we're strong enough to be their allies. and this might be our last chance to prevent more bloodshed. Elena's expression softened, understanding but still worried. She nodded, then quickly pulled out a data pad. I'll analyze everything we know about Cation physiology. There might be something you can use. Hours later, Kevin stood in the preparation room adjacent to the combat arena. He could hear the low rumble of voices from the gathered spectators. It seemed the entire station had turned out to witness this unprecedented event. Elena entered, her face pale but determined. I've done what I can, she said, handing him a small earpiece. I'll feed you information during the fight. Just be careful out there. The combat space was a large circular pit, its floor covered in a material that resembled sand but provided perfect traction. Surrounding the pit were tiered seats filled with Cations, their eyes gleaming in the harsh lighting. Across the arena, Admiral Claw entered to a chorus of cheers and growls. He wore only a simple loincloth, his fur rippling over densely packed muscles. His cybernetic eye glowed menacingly as he bared his fangs at Kevin. A gong sounded, signaling the start of the combat. Claw wasted no time, launching himself at Kevin with frightening speed. Kevin barely managed to dodge, feeling the wind of Claw's claws as they sliced through the air where his head had been a moment before. As they fought, Kevin's mind raced. He knew that simply winning the fight wouldn't be enough. He needed to find a way to bridge the gap between their species, to show that humans and Cations could work together. Claw pressed his advantage, his attacks becoming more ferocious. Kevin found himself on the defensive, narrowly avoiding lethal strikes. In his ear, Elena's voice provided a steady stream of observations and advice. His cybernetic eye, she whispered, it's tied into his nervous system. If you can disrupt it, you might gain an advantage. Kevin nodded imperceptibly, formulating a plan. He allowed Claw to drive him back, pretending to tire. Just as Claw moved in for what he thought would be a finishing blow, Kevin ducked and rolled, coming up behind the Admiral. With lightning speed, Kevin delivered a precise strike to the base of Claw's skull, right where Elena had indicated the cybernetic implant connected to his brainstem. Claw roared in pain and confusion as his cybernetic eye flickered and went dark. Capitalizing on the moment, Kevin swept Claw's legs out from under him, sending the massive Cation crashing to the ground. In an instant, Kevin was on top of him, his forearm pressed against Claw's throat. But instead of pressing his advantage, Kevin did something unexpected. He stood up and offered his hand to Claw. We don't have to be enemies, Kevin said, his voice carrying across the silent arena. Imagine what we could accomplish as allies. Claw stared at Kevin's outstretched hand, confusion and conflict warring in his expression. The entire future of human-Cation relations hung in the balance as Claw made his decision. The arena fell silent, the tension palpable, as all eyes focused on the two figures at its center. You fight with honor, human, Claw growled, his organic eye narrowing. But it will take more than a single combat to bridge the divide between our species. Kevin nodded, his expression serious. You're right, which is why I propose we put our combined skills to the test. He turned to address the High Council, his voice carrying across the arena. Honorable members of the Council, I propose a joint human-Cation mission. We have the technology to transform barren worlds into habitable ones. Let us demonstrate this on a nearby uninhabited planet. This will serve as proof of what we can achieve together. Murmurs of interest and skepticism rippled through the assembly. One of the counselors, an elderly female with silver-streaked fur, leaned forward. And what would this mission entail precisely? Kevin glanced at Elena, who stepped forward with her holoprojector. If I may, she said, activating the device, a holographic representation of a planet appeared, rotating slowly in the air between them and the council. We've identified a planet in a neighboring star system with conditions similar to your homeworld, Elena explained. Using a combination of our terraforming technology and Cation environmental engineering, we believe we can transform it into a habitable world in a fraction of the time it would take either of our species working alone. The council members exchanged glances, their tails twitching with interest. After a moment of hushed deliberation, the silver-furred counselor spoke again. Your proposal is intriguing, but who would oversee such a mission? I volunteer, Claw said, surprising everyone. He stood tall, his cybernetic eye flickering back to life. I will represent Cation interest in this venture. Kevin nodded his agreement. And I will represent Earth. Dr. Reeves here will lead the scientific team from our side. The council conferred once more before the silver-furred counselor raised her hand for silence. Very well. We will allow this joint mission to proceed. Admiral Claw will lead the Cation contingent, along with our top environmental scientist, Lyra. As if on cue, a lithe Cation female with russet fur stepped forward from the shadows. Her green eyes glinted with intelligence as she surveyed Kevin and Elena. Prepare your teams, the counselor continued. You will depart for the target planet within a standard rotation. The next few hours passed in a blur of activity. Kevin and Elena worked tirelessly with Claw and Lyra, combining their knowledge and resources to prepare for the mission. They boarded a sleek Cation science vessel, its hull gleaming with an iridescent sheen that seemed to shift colors as it moved. As the ship broke orbit, Kevin stood at a viewing port, watching the Cation space station recede into the distance. Elena joined him, her expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. Do you think this will work? She asked softly. The journey to the target planet took several days, during which the human and Cation team members worked closely together. Kevin found himself impressed by Lyra's brilliance as they pored over terraforming simulations. Even Claw, initially standoffish, began to warm to the humans as they shared stories and tactical knowledge. Commencing atmospheric analysis, Lyra announced, her claws dancing over the control panel. Elena leaned in, studying the data as it scrolled across the screen. The composition is remarkably similar to your homeworld's current state, she observed. This should be an ideal test case. Claw nodded, his tail swishing thoughtfully. Then let us begin. Prepare the atmospheric processors for deployment. The next few hours were a flurry of activity as the team worked to set up the initial stages of the terraforming process. Kevin's enhanced strength and agility proved invaluable as he assisted in the installation of equipment on the planet's surface, moving with ease in the harsh environment, despite the cumbersome protective suit. Back on the ship, Elena and Lyra worked in perfect synchronization, monitoring the atmospheric changes and adjusting the process as needed. Claw coordinated the efforts, his military precision ensuring every step was executed flawlessly. As the first phase of atmospheric transformation neared completion, Kevin returned to the ship, his suit covered in the planet's reddish dust. He removed his helmet, grinning at Elena. You should see it down there. The air's already starting to clear. Elena smiled back, her eyes shining with excitement. The algae cultures are ready for deployment. Once they're established, oxygen production should accelerate exponentially. But just as they were about to celebrate this initial success, alarms began blaring throughout the ship. Lyra's ears flattened against her skull as she studied her console. We have a problem, she growled. The planet's core is destabilizing. The changes we've introduced to the surface are causing unexpected tectonic reactions. Claw's cybernetic eye glowed ominously. Can we abort the process? Elena shook her head. Not without causing even more damage. We need to stabilize the core, and fast. Kevin's mind raced, considering their options. We'll need to go back down there, he said finally. Plant stabilizers directly into the crust. It's the only way to control the reaction. As they prepared for the perilous descent, Kevin caught Elena's worried gaze. Be careful down there, she said softly. Kevin squeezed her hand reassuringly. Always am. Keep the ship safe. We'll be back before you know it. There, Claw pointed, indicating a relatively stable area near one of the largest cracks. We'll start there and work our way along the fault line. Kevin nodded, gripping the controls tightly as he maneuvered the shuttle for landing. As soon as they touched down, they sprang into action, unloading the stabilizer equipment and moving swiftly towards the edge of the chasm. The ground shook beneath their feet as they worked, the planet's very bones seeming to groan in protest. Kevin's enhanced reflexes allowed him to maintain his balance, but even Claw struggled at times to stay upright. We need to move faster, Kevin shouted over the rumbling of the earth. The reaction is accelerating. Claw growled in acknowledgement, his powerful muscles straining as he helped Kevin position the next stabilizer. They worked in tandem, human and Cation, united by the urgency of their task. As they activated the final stabilizer, a violent tremor shook the area. Kevin lost his footing, sliding towards the edge of the chasm. In a flash, Claw's hand shot out, grasping Kevin's arm and pulling him to safety. For a moment they stood there, Claw's hand still on Kevin's arm, both panting from exertion and adrenaline. Then slowly, the rumbling began to subside. Kevin's comm crackled to life, Elena's voice filled with relief. "Kevin! Claw! The core is stabilizing! Whatever you did down there, it's working!" Claw released Kevin's arm, a smile tugging at the corners of his feline mouth. "Perhaps there is hope for our species after all, human." Kevin nodded, looking out over the landscape. Already he could see the atmosphere clearing, the first hints of blue sky peeking through the haze. "This is just the beginning," he said. "We've proven what we can accomplish together. Now we need to make sure everyone else sees it too." As they boarded the shuttle to return to the ship, Kevin couldn't shake the feeling that their greatest challenges still lay ahead. But for now, as human and Cation technology worked in harmony to breathe life into a dead world, he allowed himself a moment of hope for the future. As the shuttle docked with the Cation science vessel, Kevin's mind was already racing with plans for their next steps. But fate had other ideas. As soon as they stepped onto the bridge, Lyra's ears perked up, her eyes wide with alarm. "We're receiving an urgent transmission from Earth," she announced, her claws flying over the console. "This is an emergency broadcast," a grim-faced human officer announced. "General Hawk has seized control of Earth's primary orbital defense platform. He's demanding immediate recognition of human supremacy and threatening to use the platform's weapons against both Cation forces and Earth cities if his demands are not met." Claw growled his agreement, already moving to the ship's helm. "Plot a course for Earth. Maximum speed," he ordered. As the Cation vessel surged forward, leaving the newly transformed planet behind, Kevin briefed the team on General Hawk. "He's always been a hardliner, opposed to any cooperation with alien species. But I never thought he'd go this far." Elena's brow furrowed as she processed the information. He must have been planning this for months, maybe even years, to take control of an orbital platform. Their discussion was cut short as they entered Earth's solar system. Immediately, proximity alarms blared. The view screen lit up with weapons fire as a squadron of Earth fighters, clearly under Hawk's control, opened fire on their ship. The ship lurched and spun, Kevin's enhanced reflexes allowing him to stay on his feet, while others stumbled. Lyra and Elena rushed to the engineering console, working in tandem to reinforce the ship's shields. "Claw, let me take the helm," Kevin said, moving to the pilot's seat. "I can get us through this." The Cation admiral nodded, relinquishing control. Kevin's hands flew over the controls, the ship responding to his touch as if it were an extension of his own body. He weaved through the barrage of weapons fire, each near miss causing the ship to shudder. "We're being hailed," Lyra announced. "It's Admiral Chen of the Earth Defense Force." "On screen," Kevin ordered, not taking his eyes off the flight controls. Admiral Chen's face appeared, lines of stress etched deeply around her eyes. "Kevin, Dr. Reeves, we're relieved to see you. We've been trying to mount a counteroffensive, but Hawk's loyalists have us pinned down. That platform's weapons are too powerful." "We're here to help, Admiral," Kevin responded, narrowly avoiding a photon torpedo. "What's the situation on the ground?" "Chaos," Chen replied grimly. "Hawk's supporters are clashing with those who oppose him in every major city. We need to end this quickly before the situation deteriorates further." Kevin's mind raced, formulating a plan. "We need to take out that platform. Admiral, can you provide us cover while we make an approach?" Chen nodded. "We'll do what we can. Good luck." As the transmission ended, Kevin turned to his team. "I have a plan, but it's risky. We're going to infiltrate that platform and shut it down from the inside." Elena's eyes widened. "How? Their sensors will detect us the moment we get close." A slow smile spread across Kevin's face. "Not if we use Cation cloaking technology. Lyra, can you adapt your ship's cloaking device to work on a smaller scale?" The Cation engineer's whiskers twitched thoughtfully. It's possible, but it would only work for a short time. The energy requirements are substantial. As Lyra worked to modify the cloaking device, Kevin, Elena, and Claw prepared for the mission. They donned sleek, form-fitting combat suits, a blend of human and Cation design. Kevin felt the familiar surge of adrenaline, his enhanced body humming with energy. "Remember," he said as they gathered in the airlock, "our primary objective is to disable the weapon systems and apprehend Hawk. We do this quick and clean." With a nod from Lyra, the cloaking device activated. The small team launched from the Cation ship, their approach masked from the platform's sensors. As they drew closer, the true scale of the orbital station became apparent. It was a behemoth of metal and energy, filled with weapon emplacements and sensor arrays. They found an access point near one of the auxiliary power nodes. Kevin used his enhanced strength to pry open the airlock, and they slipped inside just as the cloaking device flickered and died. The interior of the station was a maze of corridors and control rooms. They moved swiftly and silently, Elena using her technical skills to bypass security checkpoints, while Claw's keen senses alerted them to approaching patrols. As they neared the central control hub, Kevin held up a hand, signaling the others to stop. His enhanced hearing had picked up something unusual. "Do you hear that?" he whispered. A low, mechanical whir filled the air, growing louder by the second. Suddenly, a squad of sleek humanoid robots rounded the corner. Their metallic bodies gleamed under the harsh station lighting, and their eyes glowed with an eerie red light. "Combat robots," Elena breathed, her eyes wide with a mixture of fear and scientific curiosity. Hawk must have been developing them in secret. There was no time for further analysis. The robots, apparently designed to rival Titan capabilities, launched into action. Kevin barely had time to shout, "Take cover!" before the air was filled with a hail of energy blasts. Across the corridor, Claw was engaged in a fierce hand-to-hand battle with two of the robots. His cybernetic enhancements gave him an edge, but even he was being pushed to his limits. Elena had taken cover behind a bulkhead, using a salvaged energy weapon to provide covering fire. As Kevin struggled with his mechanical opponent, he realized they needed a new strategy. These robots were designed to counter Titan abilities, which meant relying solely on his enhancements wouldn't be enough. "Claw!" he shouted, ducking under a vicious swipe from the robot. "Remember the teamwork drills we practiced?" The Cation's ears perked up, understanding instantly. With a growl, he disengaged from his opponents and sprinted towards Kevin. In one fluid motion, Kevin grabbed Claw's arm and used the Cation's momentum to swing him into the robots. Claw's claws tore through metal and circuitry, disabling two robots in a single pass. They continued this way, human and Cation moving in perfect synchronization. Kevin's Titan-enhanced abilities complemented Claw's natural agility and cybernetic strength. Together, they were more than a match for the advanced combat robots. As the last robot fell, sparks flying from its damaged chassis, Kevin turned to Elena. "We need to keep moving. Can you access the station schematics?" Elena nodded, her fingers flying over a nearby terminal. "I'm in. The main control room is 2 levels up. But Kevin, I found something else. These files, they suggest Hawk has been collaborating with a group of Cation extremists." Claw's organic eye widened in shock. "Impossible! No true Cation would betray our people like this." "We'll get to the bottom of this," Kevin assured him. "But right now, we need to stop Hawk before he can do any more damage." As they made their way towards the control room, alarms began to blare throughout the station. "He knows we're here," Elena said grimly. They reached the entrance to the control room, only to find it sealed behind a massive blast door. Elena immediately set to work on the access panel, her brow furrowed in concentration. "I can get us in," she said, "but it's going to take time. And once I start, Hawk will know exactly where we are." Kevin nodded, his mind racing. "Do it. Claw and I will hold them off." As Elena worked, the sound of approaching forces echoed through the corridors. Kevin and Claw took up defensive positions, ready for whatever came their way. The first wave of Hawk's loyalist soldiers rounded the corner, and the battle began in earnest. Kevin's enhanced reflexes allowed him to dodge incoming fire, while returning precisely aimed shots of his own. Claw was a whirlwind of motion, his cybernetic implants giving him an edge in both speed and strength. But for every soldier they took down, two more seemed to take their place. Kevin realized with growing dread that they were fighting a losing battle. They needed a new plan, and fast. Elena's eyes widened. I can, but Kevin, that could destroy the entire platform. We'd have minutes at most to escape. Do it, Kevin ordered, ducking under a barrage of weapons fire. Claw and I will handle Hawk. As Elena began the dangerous process of overloading the core, Kevin and Claw fought their way into the control room. There, standing before the massive viewports with Earth hanging in the background, was General Hawk. The general turned, a sneer twisting his features. Ah, the prodigal Titan returns, he said, his voice dripping with contempt, and with his pet alien, no less. It's over, Hawk, Kevin said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline coursing through his veins. Stand down. Hawk's laugh was cold and mirthless. Over? This is just the beginning, boy. Humanity will take its rightful place as rulers of the galaxy, and no alien-loving traitors will stand in our way. With that, Hawk launched himself at Kevin, the exosuit propelling him forward with incredible speed. Kevin barely had time to brace himself before the impact sent them both crashing into a bank of computers. As Kevin grappled with Hawk, he realized with growing alarm that the general's exosuit matched, and in some ways exceeded, his own Titan enhancements. Every punch he threw was blocked or absorbed by the suit's advanced shielding. Every attempt to grapple or throw was countered with equal strength. Claw tried to intervene, but Hawk's suit allowed him to fight both opponents simultaneously. A vicious backhand sent the Caitian admiral flying across the room, crashing into a control panel in a shower of sparks. As the battle raged on, the station began to shake violently. Warning klaxons blared, and the computer announced in a calm voice that belied the danger. Warning, power core overload imminent. Station-wide evacuation protocols initiated. Kevin knew they were running out of time. He needed to end this now, drawing on everything he had learned, both from his Titan training and his recent experiences with the Caitians. Kevin changed his tactics. Instead of relying solely on brute strength, he began to move more fluidly, using Hawk's own momentum against him. It was working. Hawk, used to overpowering his opponents, found himself off balance. Kevin pressed his advantage, each strike precisely targeted at weak points in the exosuit's design. With a final powerful blow, Kevin managed to damage the suit's power distribution system. Electricity arced across its surface, and Hawk roared in pain and fury. The general stumbled, his movements becoming erratic as the suit's systems failed. Seizing the moment, Claw pounced, using his cybernetic strength to restrain Hawk. It's finished, the Caitian growled. They dragged the struggling Hawk towards the exit, where they found Elena waiting. The escape pods are this way, she said, leading them down a shuddering corridor. As they reached the pods, Kevin could feel the station falling apart around them. They quickly secured Hawk and piled into the nearest pod. With a hiss of decompression, the pod launched, streaking away from the doomed platform. Through the pod's viewport, they watched as the orbital station exploded in a spectacular blast of light and energy. The shockwave rocked their small craft, but Kevin's steady hand on the controls kept them stable. As they began their descent towards Earth, Kevin knew that their mission was just getting started. They had stopped Hawk and prevented a catastrophe, but the political fallout from this event would be enormous. The future of human-Caitian relations still hung in the balance. Looking at his diverse team, human, Caitian, scientist, and soldier, Kevin felt a glimmer of hope. They had achieved the impossible together. Now they faced an even greater challenge, convincing their respective species that peace was not only possible, but essential. As Earth grew larger in their viewport, Kevin steeled himself for the battles ahead. They would be fought not with fists or weapons, but with words and ideas. And somehow he knew that these battles would prove to be the most crucial of all. The escape pod hurtled through Earth's atmosphere, its heat shield glowing orange as it decelerated. Inside, Kevin gripped the controls tightly, guiding their descent with practiced precision. Elena and Claw sat behind him, their eyes fixed on the rapidly approaching landmass below. Between them, General Hawk lay unconscious, securely restrained. As they broke through the cloud cover, the sprawling cityscape of Geneva came into view. Kevin spotted their designated landing zone, a heavily guarded military airfield on the outskirts of the city. He engaged the pod's landing thrusters, bringing them down with a gentle bump on the tarmac. "Welcome back, heroes," said a stern-faced woman in a crisp military uniform. "I'm Colonel Dina Vasquez. We need to debrief you immediately." As they sped towards the city center, Vasquez filled them in on the situation. News of their mission had already spread, igniting a firestorm of controversy and debate across the globe. The United Earth government had called for an emergency summit to address the future of human-Cation relations. "The summit will be held in our most secure underground facility," Vasquez explained. "You'll all be expected to testify about your experiences." Kevin exchanged glances with Elena and Claw. They knew their words could shape the future of interspecies relations. The next few days passed in a whirlwind of preparation and security briefings. Finally, the day of the summit arrived. Kevin stood before a mirror, adjusting his formal uniform. The weight of responsibility settled heavily on his shoulders. Elena appeared at his side, her usual lab coat replaced by a sleek diplomatic suit. "Ready?" she asked, her voice steady despite the tension in her eyes. Kevin nodded. "As ready as we'll ever be." They made their way through a labyrinth of security checkpoints, eventually emerging into a vast underground chamber. Tiered seating surrounded a central podium, filled with delegates from Earth and Cation representatives. The air buzzed with nervous energy. As Kevin took his place at the podium, he scanned the crowd. Human and Cation faces stared back at him, some curious, others hostile. He took a deep breath and began to speak. "Distinguished delegates, I stand before you today not just as a Titan, but as someone who has seen firsthand the potential of human-Cation cooperation." For the next hour, Kevin detailed their mission, emphasizing the successful terraforming project and the collaboration that made it possible. Elena followed, presenting scientific data that underscored the benefits of combining human and Cation technologies. When Admiral Claw stepped up to speak, a murmur rippled through the Cation delegates. His words carried the weight of his military experience as he outlined the shared challenges both species faced. "We stand at a crossroads," Claw concluded, his voice resonating through the chamber. "We can choose the path of conflict, or we can forge a new future together." As the summit progressed, Kevin could sense the mood shifting. Many delegates who had arrived skeptical were now engaged in earnest discussions about potential collaborations. However, not everyone was convinced. During a recess, Kevin overheard heated arguments between human and Cation representatives. Outside the facility, reports came in of growing protests demanding an end to all alien contact. "I propose a bold new initiative," he began, his voice steady. "A joint human-Cation space exploration program. Together we can seek out new habitable worlds, expanding our horizons and ensuring a future for both our species." His words ignited a firestorm of debate. Some delegates leapt to their feet, passionately arguing in favor of the idea. Others shouted objections, warning of the potential for further conflict over resources. As the arguments reached a fever pitch, a shrill alarm cut through the air. Red warning lights began to flash, and a computerized voice echoed through the chamber. "Security breach detected in lower levels. All personnel, initiate emergency protocols." Panic erupted among the delegates. Security forces rushed to secure the exits, but Kevin knew they needed to act fast. He caught Elena's eye and nodded towards Admiral Claw. Without a word, they slipped away from the chaos, making their way to a secured communications terminal. "This is Admiral Claw," the Cation growled into the comm. "We're volunteering to lead a team to neutralize the threat." There was a moment of static before Colonel Vasquez's voice came through. "Understood, Admiral. We're sending you the security feeds now. Good luck." The trio studied the flickering screens, watching as shadowy figures moved through the facility's lower levels. Kevin's enhanced vision picked out details the others missed, a mix of human and Cation extremists, working in concert. "They're heading for the main power core," Elena said, her fingers flying over the keyboard. "If they overload it..." As they descended deeper into the facility, they encountered the first of the extremist traps. A shimmering energy field blocked their path, its design a twisted fusion of human and Cation technology. Elena studied it for a moment, then nodded to Kevin. "The power source is there," she said, pointing to a nearly invisible node. "If you can disable it." They pressed on, disarming traps and bypassing security systems. Each obstacle showcased the dangerous potential of combined human and Cation technology in the wrong hands. Finally, they reached a heavily reinforced door. Beyond it, they could hear the low hum of powerful equipment, the extremists' hidden command center. Elena gripped her weapon tightly, while Claw's cybernetic eye glowed with dedication. They nodded in unison. Kevin took a deep breath, then kicked the door open with all his enhanced might. They burst into the room, weapons at the ready. The scene that greeted them was one of controlled chaos. Extremists, both human and Cation, worked feverishly at banks of computers. At the center of it all stood a towering figure, a human encased in an exosuit that rivaled Kevin's own enhancements. "Ah, the heroes arrive," the figure sneered, turning to face them. Just in time to witness the dawn of a new era. Kevin's eyes narrowed as he recognized the voice. "Commander Vex," he growled, "I should have known you'd be behind this." Vex laughed, a cold, metallic sound. "You always were slow on the uptake, Kevin. While you played nice with the aliens, we prepared for the future. A future where humanity takes its rightful place as rulers of the galaxy." "You're insane," Elena spat. "Your actions could start a war that would destroy both our species." "A necessary sacrifice," Vex replied, his voice chilling in its calm. "Now, let me show you the future you're fighting so hard to prevent." With that, Vex launched himself at Kevin, his exosuit propelling him forward with incredible speed. The impact sent them both crashing into a bank of computers, sparks flying as they grappled. Elena and Claw found themselves engaged with the other extremists, a furious battle erupting in the confined space of the command center. Gunfire and energy blasts filled the air, punctuated by the clash of metal on metal as Kevin and Vex traded blows. As they fought, Kevin realized with growing alarm that Vex's suit matched, and in some ways exceeded, his own Titan enhancements. Every punch he threw was blocked or absorbed by the suit's advanced shielding. Every attempt to grapple or throw was countered with equal strength. "You see?" Vex taunted as they struggled. "This is the power of true human ingenuity, not diluted by alien influence, but pure and focused." Suddenly, alarms began to blare throughout the facility. A computerized voice announced, "Warning, detonation sequence initiated. All personnel evacuate immediately." Vex's laugh echoed through the chamber. "Too late, heroes. In 10 minutes, this entire facility will be nothing but a smoking crater. The war you tried so hard to prevent will begin, and from its ashes a stronger humanity will rise." Kevin's mind raced. He knew they needed to stop the detonation, but first he had to deal with Vex. Drawing on everything he had learned, both from his Titan training and his recent experiences with the Cations, Kevin changed his tactics. Instead of meeting Vex's brute force head-on, he began to move more fluidly, using his opponent's momentum against him. It was working. Vex, used to overpowering his enemies, found himself off balance. "Elena!" Kevin shouted as he grappled with Vex. "Can you stop the detonation?" "Working on it," she called back, her voice strained. "But the system's locked down tight. I need more time." Time was the one thing they didn't have. Kevin knew he had to end this now. With a surge of effort, he managed to slip past Vex's guard, targeting a weak point in the exosuit's joint. With a final powerful blow, Kevin managed to breach the suit's power core. Electricity arced across its surface, and Vex roared in pain and fury. The commander stumbled, his movements becoming erratic as the suit's systems failed. Seizing the moment, Claw pounced, using his cybernetic strength to restrain Vex. "It's finished," the Cation growled. Kevin nodded grimly, then turned to Elena. "How much time do we have?" 3 minutes, she replied, her face pale with concentration. "I've almost got it, but—" She never finished her sentence. A massive explosion rocked the facility, sending them all stumbling. Dust and debris rained down from the ceiling. "The protesters outside," Claus said, his ears twitching. "They must have breached the perimeter." Kevin's mind raced. They were out of time. He looked at Elena, still working furiously at the terminal, then at Claw, who was securing the now unconscious Vex. "Elena, keep working on stopping that detonation. Claw, get Vex out of here and help evacuate as many people as you can." Kevin's voice was firm, brooking no argument. "I'll handle the protesters." Before either of them could object, Kevin was moving. He sprinted through the corridors, his enhanced speed allowing him to cover ground quickly. He could hear the sounds of chaos growing louder as he neared the surface. Kevin knew he had to act fast, not just to stop the violence, but to buy Elena the time she needed to prevent a catastrophe that could plunge both their species into war. He took a deep breath, then stepped forward to face the surging crowd, hoping that his actions in the next few moments could make a difference, not just for those in the building, but for the future of human-Cation relations. The fate of two species hung in the balance and the clock was ticking. "Listen to me," he shouted, his enhanced voice carrying over the chaos. "We're all in danger. There's a bomb in the facility. We need to evacuate now." His words cut through the noise, causing the crowd to hesitate. In that moment of confusion, Kevin seized his chance. "Human or Cation, it doesn't matter right now. We need to work together to get everyone out safely. Please help us evacuate the building." Kevin's communicator crackled to life. "Kevin, it's Elena. I've managed to delay the detonation, but I can't stop it completely. We have 15 minutes. "Understood," Kevin replied. "I'm coordinating the evacuation up here. How are you and Claw doing?" "We're on our way up with Vex. Meet us at the rendezvous point." As the last of the civilians streamed out of the building, Kevin made his way to the predetermined meeting spot. He arrived just as Elena and Claw emerged from a service elevator, dragging the still unconscious Vex between them. "No time," Kevin decided. "Everyone, follow me." He led them to a nearby hangar where several shuttles were docked. As they ran, Kevin activated his communicator, broadcasting on all channels. "This is Titan operative Kevin Davidson. The summit facility is compromised. All personnel evacuate immediately to a minimum safe distance of 5 kilometers." They reached a shuttle just as another blast rocked the building. Kevin took the pilot's seat, his enhanced reflexes allowing him to bypass the pre-flight checks and get the engines online in record time. As they lifted off, Kevin could see other shuttles and vehicles streaming away from the facility. He pushed the engines to their limit, racing against the clock. In the months that followed, the failed summit became a rallying point for those who believed in human-Cation cooperation. Despite the setback, or perhaps because of it, both species realized the need for unity in the face of extremist threats. Their first major project was the construction of a massive space station in neutral territory between Earth and the Cation homeworld. It was to be a symbol of the new era of collaboration, a place where humans and Cations could live and work side by side. Kevin stood on the observation deck of the nearly completed station, gazing out at the stars. The view never failed to take his breath away. He heard footsteps behind him and turned to see Elena approaching. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" she said, coming to stand beside him. Kevin nodded. "Hard to believe how far we've come in such a short time." Elena smiled. "You should be proud, Kevin. Your actions that day at the summit, you showed everyone what was possible when we worked together." Before Kevin could respond, Admiral Claw's voice came over the intercom. "Kevin, Elena, please report to the command center. The inaugural ceremony is about to begin." They made their way through the station's gleaming corridors, passing humans and Cations, working together in perfect harmony. The command center was a buzz of activity when they arrived, with dignitaries from both species gathered for the ceremony. Admiral Claw stood at the center of the room, his cybernetic eye gleaming. "Ah, good, you're here. We're about to broadcast the opening address to both our worlds." As they took their places, Kevin felt a sense of pride and accomplishment. This station, this partnership, was proof that they had overcome their differences and forged a new path forward. The ceremony began with speeches from human and Cation leaders emphasizing the importance of their alliance. As Admiral Claw stepped up to deliver the final address, a hush fell over the room. Today marks a new chapter in the history of our species, Claw began. This station stands as a testament to what we can achieve when we put aside our fears and work together. From here, we will explore the stars side by side, facing whatever challenges the universe may hold. Suddenly, an urgent beeping interrupted the speech. A young Cation officer rushed to a nearby console, her fur standing on end as she read the incoming message. "Admiral," she called out, her voice tight with concern, "we're receiving a distress signal from the outer colonies. It's Outpost Zeta, sir. They've gone dark." A murmur of alarm spread through the gathered dignitaries. Outpost Zeta was one of the first joint human-Cation colonies, established on the fringes of explored space. Its success had been a shining example of interspecies cooperation. Admiral Claw's cybernetic eye whirred as he processed the information. "Kevin, Elena, prepare for immediate deployment. We need to investigate this situation." As the command center erupted into a flurry of activity, Kevin caught Elena's eye. They both knew that whatever was happening at Outpost Zeta, it could be a critical test of the newfound alliance between humans and Cations. Within hours, they were aboard the UES Horizon, a state-of-the-art vessel that combined the best of human and Cation technology. As they jumped to faster-than-light speed, Kevin couldn't shake the feeling that they were heading into something far beyond anything they had faced before. Little did they know that their journey to Outpost Zeta would lead them to an encounter that would change the course of history for both their species and challenge everything they thought they knew about life in the universe.
You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.